Morning, fellas.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
How y'all doing?
Good, man.
Good, man. Bless.
Feeling good. Body feeling good. The workout from yesterday.
We here.
Yeah, that was good.
They said you gave them all the smoke yesterday.
Hey, man. After 13 weeks, I think I could turn up the knob just a little bit. I think that foundation was made. I had to get him right.
we gonna tell by who come back next week.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Next week is gonna be 2 people. Welcome another week of the podcast where we will distract you from your current story, dismantle your current belief systems, and inspire you to change your mind, which will then inspire you to change your life. And today we're going to focus on the last one, inspiring you to change your mind, which will then inspire you to change your life by teaching you about the mind and things that go on when you make a true commitment and when you truly learn something. All right. So first, some friendly reminders. Um, Follow us, please. If you're watching, you obviously follow us. But more importantly, please share because our mission is to serve. So the more people we get in front of, the better. So please continue to like, comment, share. And a couple of our programs, we have our Game 7 Academy where we do tutoring and mentorship. Kids as young as second grade, however old that is, like 8 or 9, all the way up to adults 50 plus. That's our Game 7 Academy program. Then we have game7shop.com, all of our apparel, clothing, hats, hoodies, t-shirts, masks, and more to come. KG's got some on. Just got some on. Hizzle got some on. Everybody got some on. Game7shop.com. And then what we were talking about in the beginning, part of our Goal Line program. Goal Line program is essentially for student athletes, but not just people in school who play sports. You should always be a student athlete. You should always prioritize your physical health. You should always prioritize your intellect and your mental health. So, but this one is a lot more physical than our normal programs, but that's our Goal Line program, personal training. All right, so review from previous conversation that is relevant for today's conversation. So we talked about smoke last week, right? Um, and in order to grow, in order to advance, you have to seek the smoke. Don't run from something. Don't just be faster than the slowest person, since the slowest person is the one who gets caught. Then you become in last, you compete again to be the second slowest because the slowest person gets caught. And you kind of stay all the way in the back. You stay at 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10. But you run to something. You run to number one. And then when you're number one, you run to being the best. And then when you become the best, you run to becoming the GOAT. So always run to something. Don't run from something. So this week, as I stated, I don't really, well, I do plan these out, but not really until like the morning of or the night before, because I'm just using my personal experiences to share with you throughout the week, And this week, the most powerful moment for me was Friday. Come on. Friday at about 4:01. I called Just. After a week in the market, I was excited. And, if I call any of y'all, like, it's either something wrong or something very, very good. I called him and I was like, yo, Just, I get it. He's like, what you talking about? And we were just talking about some movements in the market and how when a play goes wrong, you can just switch your movement. You don't have to stand so strong like they were saying with GameStop. You don't have to hold the line. You know, like this is a two-sided game. It's like a war. You start losing, just switch to the other side. You know, so we had a conversation about that. And that made me think of part of our mission, inspiring people to change their mind, because a changed mind leads to a changed life. So just getting that piece of information is going to be a powerful, powerful tool that I'm going to use in my personal trading that ideally will help me in the process of changing my life. So let's talk about what actually goes on, like in them light bulbs moments, right? What goes on when you get it, and how do you get it? So that's something in your brain called neuroplasticity. Neuro, like neurology, a neurosurgeon is the brain. Plasticity, the ability to be molded. That's why there's things all around your house that are made from plastic, but they look totally different. They serve totally different purposes because plastic can be molded. So today we're going to talk about neuroplasticity. It's kind of teachy in the beginning, but it's very, very important information. So you can be your own mechanic, because if you understand how to learn, like not just in the tangible actions of it, but what's going on in your brain, you'll be able to be more intentional with your process. All right, so this one's kind of nerdy, but we're going to rap about it, kind of teaching in the beginning, and then we'll discuss it. So, neuroplasticity. Your conscious, like what you know you're doing, and your subconscious, what you don't notice that you're doing, processes run on similar platforms of connected neurons. Each neuron is as complex as a city. A typical neuron makes about 10,000 connections to neurons around it. You have the ability to change that system to build new neural connections that can align your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors with what you ultimately want to achieve. These groupings of neurons can be connected to other groupings by synapses on a myelin circuit. And we'll talk about what all this means. Every thought, feeling, and action in your life is some combination of neural patterns connecting to one another. Your brain can be renovated, like literally, and it can happen at any time. When you learn a new skill, you change your brain by making new neural connections. When you learn to play an instrument, speak a new language, juggle a ball, learn how to do a reel, learn how to do TikTok, your brain begins to change. This changing of your brain is called neuroplasticity. All right. So, what does that look like? So, this in the middle is like a 3D image of a neuron. The white ball looking thing in the middle is a neuron. And then everything coming off of it is a synapse. And that connects to another neuron, connects to another neuron, connects to another neuron. So as stated, you can have about 10,000 connections from one, right? So a weak circuit is like a traffic jam. So along this route from the neuron to the other neuron, everything is like clogged up. It's not moving quickly. There's a lack of direction, right? Like the term that people say, the same things are not lining up for me. I'm out of alignment. My mind isn't at ease, right? That's a weak neural connection, right? For example, you talk to a 4-year-old and you ask them, what is 7 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4? And they're like processing. Even if they can get it, like they got to do 7 plus 2, 9 plus 3, 12 plus 4, 16. As opposed, you talk to a Harvard math instructor, boom, you got it, because the connection is so much faster, like to the right, right? So it's like a racetrack, and there's a whole bunch of cars, flying, because they worked on developing those circuits. So let's dive deeper into that. So from the first slide, I want you to get every single thing you do is from a connection of neurons. Every word, every alignment of your mouth that is done to say each particular word, every movement, every thought is a connection of neurons, right? That's why it's very important to get your mind right, because your connections need to be strong so they can take you to the places that you desire to go. All right, next. How can neuroplasticity alter the mind? How can it alter the mind? So neurogenesis, right? Genesis, generate. Neuroplasticity helps you get more places on the map, right? Through neurogenesis. More places on the map through neurogenesis. You just made another order. Oh, Game 7 Shop. Okay, thanks, Mom. Neurogenesis. The process of making more neurons or brain cells. Creating more neurons means that you have more of what is called gray matter in the brain, right? More productive space to do stuff with, right? You go buy a big vacant apartment building, it's up to you to do something with it. In the adult brain, this happens in key areas like the hippocampus as you learn something new. And the best thing you can do for neurogenesis is actually work out. That's why it's much, much, much better to work out in the morning than it is at night. Night owl or not, call it what you want, do your research. But even if you are a night owl, think about it. You went through the whole day. Even if you had a great, amazing day, you used about 30, 40, 50% of your brain space for that day, which really does need to be recreated through sleep. So you think you're at your peak, but you're really at 50 or 60, operating strong at that level in comparison to waking up at 100, building your neurons, and then using your environment to start to connect them. So neurogenesis, you generate more neurons. Secondly, Hebb's rule, more and bigger rows on the map. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Neurons that communicate with each other, electrochemically, they create a bond or a path. When neurons connect repeatedly, the path gets stronger, creating a bigger, easier road to travel. So, right, that's like habits. You see family, you see Thanksgiving dinner, right? You see eat that, right? You see your healthier friends, you see Thanksgiving dinner, they don't eat that. Or you see your friends on the block and hustling, so you grow up to do that because you never seen any other older men or women of your race, of your culture, doing something different. So things that wire together, fire together. That's why environment is very, very important. Kind of a neurological example of, they say that your five friends that you're closest with, you'll be the average of them, more or less. So Hebb's rule, neurons that fire together, wire together. That's why environment is very, very important. Myelin, better roads. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And neurons that communicate with each other. I copied the same thing twice. But myelin essentially takes those bigger roads and fortifies them, right? So each circuit, imagine if it circled in like it got a turbo boost, right? So you turn the road into a hyperspeed tunnel, right? And the more times you wrap the road, the faster you fire the circuit. That's how you get from the traffic jam to the racetrack, right? Through myelin. Myelin develops the road, okay? Neurogenesis, you got more concrete. You got more concrete, more concrete, more concrete. Hebb's rule is the environment, right? If you take the concrete to make a ramp, you'll make ramps. If you take the concrete to make a racetrack, you'll make a racetrack, right? And then myelin fortifies the road. It's like an infrastructure. How one of Biden's, whatever he says his initiatives are for America, is to improve the infrastructure. So that's essentially what neuroplasticity is for the brain. How else can we activate neuroplasticity? Another way is novelty and curiosity. Like novelty is like big for people like Just. Something new, variety, utilizing different environments to hit on different senses, right? That's novelty. Curiosity, everybody knows what curiosity is, but that's why I put Kobe and Jordan, right? I forgot who it was. I can't remember who it was. There was a whole bunch of Kobe interviews because of the anniversary of his death, but they talked about the first time that Kobe played Jordan, how he kept asking him questions during the game, and Jordan was actually answering them. That's how that person knew that something was special about Kobe, because, you know, Jordan, he coming for your neck. He's not going to answer no questions, but curious. And we all know Kobe did everything in his power to copy MJ. And I know that's not really out there about Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick, but I mean, come on. He's Vick 2.0. So novelty means danger or reward, and is responsible for a bunch of things in your brain. The learning centers in your brain, especially the hippocampus and the amygdala. Amygdala is like the reward system. How some things are rewarding for others and some are not. That's based out of your amygdala. They are associated with memory, and they, along with other areas in your frontal and insular lobes, function as novelty detectors. These areas compare new information coming through your senses, perceptions, and creative thoughts with older information stored in memory. When something new, interesting, and potentially pleasurable or rewarding shows up, your detectors trigger the release of neurochemicals, including dopamine. Once again, back to the food, right? It's pleasurable, rewarding. It sends you those shots of dopamine, right? That's why they call drugs dope. It's just flooding your brain with like a feel-good chemical. Dopamine helps you get motivated, plan, prioritize, form new memories, and create new habits. Dopamine stimulates with neural activity, activity triggered by novelty. When you're curious about something, you release dopamine and become more motivated and action-oriented to learn new information and make new connections, right? So when it comes to neuroplasticity and getting better, that's why we say you have to be emotionally involved in what you learn. Because if you don't truly care about it, it's like your brain being a car, you're not getting the gas that you need to go forward. So novelty and curiosity. Get some new experiences and be curious about learning more. Next, pleasure and pain. On the left, pleasure, right? You can literally see where he's feeling, right? He like, oh, sugar honey iced tea. Like I won this joint, right? And this is one of the beginning ones, right? I won this joint. Then on the right, if you ever see that versus the Bucks now, wrap it up. It's over. He put that head down on the bench. He feeling that pain. His circuits are firing. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And if you watch the behind the scenes versus the Falcons, they was down by 25. He told everybody after he got up, we gonna win. It was like no doubt in his mind. Pleasure and pain. So neuroplasticity is heavily influenced by pain and pleasure. Things that we find fun and exciting or threatening and harmful are more readily encoded because they affect our survival. When we have a negative or fearful experience, for example, new connections wire faster in the brain. Things that might harm us are things we need front and center. So let's stay there for a second. 2 weeks ago, maybe I should have put that on the review, we talked about levels of why. Level 1, survival. 2, status. 3, freedom. 4, purpose. So when you're stuck in survival, right? Like we talked about in the African American culture, we're like trained to survive. Grow up, pay the bills, take care of your family. That's it. You feel me? Until you're 65 and you get smoked by your retirement plan that really can't do nothing for you. It's like a part-time job check, right? But we're so wired on it, we start to live in fear, right? And we're actually scared of going through the process to break that cycle, right? Because our neural connections are so strong. That's why before you learn, when it comes to changing your mind and changing your life, the first step is unlearning. You have to get rid of those circuits that you fortified that were taking you nowhere, right? The circuits you've had, the circuits were wired to generally connect. For a visual example, take us from home to work and back, home to work and back, home to work and back, home, holiday event, back to work, home, holiday event, home, family, and work is all we got. We're not wired to go from home to work and then also home to business, right? Oh, home to trading, home to physical fitness, right? And you start, because we got up to 10,000 different connections. So you got to let the old ones go so you can start to get some new ones. But that's why it's very, very important at whatever your pace is, ideally the fastest one, to graduate from survival throughout the process and get to here. Purpose, right? Dreams and goals have a powerful effect on the brain. With the promise of a future reward, dopamine travels to the decision-making area of the frontal lobe. When it gets there, your level of consciousness increases, and the promise of a future reward creates a critical ingredient for changing your life, motivation. This gives your brain a sense of purpose and direction in the form of goals, dreams, and aspirations, and helps to keep your neuroplasticity switch activated. So a big one here is, this is another thing, another reason that people get stuck. The promise of a future reward. The biggest rewards are not promised. The biggest rewards are not promised. Now, I was very intentional about choosing these images because also 2 weeks ago, we talked about how the African American community are the biggest consumers in America. Consumption rate is bigger than countries. Many countries. Our buying power is immense, right? Because you can consume and your reward is promised. It gets here, especially with Amazon. 9:24, it'll be here by 10:24. And then once they get these drones, it'll be here in 10 minutes, right? Instant reward. But the biggest rewards are not promised. They ain't promised, right? So when you find purpose, you must understand that the rewards are not promised. If you're focused on the promised reward, you're going to be stuck on survival. That's why I chose these people down here, right? They had a purpose. Look at this picture. We could have copied and pasted that into 2021. We still at it, right? No shade to nobody, but we still at it. Over here, we still at it. Purpose. The reward was not promised, right? And most of them have yet to see the marginal reward that their work has brought to us for all people, not just African Americans. Focus. Focus. Those who diligently focus their attention on specific tasks show meaningful and measurable changes in their brains. Mindful focusing is also linked to decreased activity in the fear and anxiety-based circuitry of the brain. By strengthening your focus muscle through learning to gradually increase your ability to narrow and sustain your attention, your neuroplasticity mechanisms can be trained to stay activated as your new normal. Right? Yeah, I see that, KG. But yeah, like those who know me intimately wouldn't think I'm a fan of LeBron. Right? As a man, I have the utmost respect for him. Right? But I watched last night too. I don't know if y'all watched last night. He didn't take the shot 2 times at the end of the game. Right? But my issue on the court is that he doesn't always play like this. See his face? Like that, it takes for him to get to the playoff. Just the fact that there's a playoff Bron, there should be no playoff Bron. It should be in every game Bron, right? But clearly, the system is working for him. But I'm just talking about him as a man. Clearly, he has a focus that is much bigger than the court, right? Just this week, he's now worth $1 billion. Still in the league with XYZ years left, right? The movie, I think the Fred Hampton movie was through his company. Or partly, but I think that was the first time I see it said Bron at the beginning, right? He got the school, all those different kind of things. Then this guy over here, if y'all know me, this is my favorite athlete of all time. He just played with a different purpose and a different focus, and he was able, like I always compare it to Madden ratings. If you put Ray Lewis in the game, everybody's rating on the team went up 5 points, right? Because of their focus and their purpose. And I would like to focus on this sentence here. Those who focus their attention on specific tasks show meaningful and measurable changes in their brains. Mindful focusing is linked to decreased activity in the fear and anxiety-based circuitry of the brain. So when you focus, your fear starts to come down, right? And that's directly tied to your belief cycle. What you believe leads to what you anticipate. What you anticipate leads to what you're intentional about. And what you're intentional about over the long run of time leads to what you focus on. Right? So that's directly tied to your belief system. So find something to focus on and your brain will start to change. You cannot get distracted. And as mentioned before, exercise. Exercise is the most critical way to exercise the mind. Yeah, that's you, KG. Throwback. Exercise is the most critical way to exercise the mind. Exercise is the most critical way to exercise the mind. What's good for your body is good for your brain. Exercise literally feeds the brain. When you exercise, especially aerobic exercises like movement and such, you increase your blood and oxygen flow. And that means more support for the brain to flourish, right? You're putting gas in your vehicle. Exercise helps the brain create more connections by increasing neural growth factors. Exercise reduces stress and depression, and that can lead to more healthy brain cell growth. So when you exercise, even more than your muscles, right? Your brain is getting fortified through exercise, right? More oxygen, more blood, and more neural connections. Discomfort. Your comfort zone is a space where your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are most habitual. When you're operating in this zone, you're only creating a minimal number of new connections in your brain. After all, why bother if you don't need to when your existing ones are already doing the trick, right? So staying in your comfort zone, you're not building the biggest highways that you can. You're not putting the fastest cars on the road. You're not putting the most cars on the road as possible that can move at top speed. You're staying in your comfort zone. You're staying at the speed limit, right? Staying at the speed limit. But this isn't like driving on the road because you only control your vehicle on the road. In this case, you control all the vehicles. So in your comfort zone, you're going to stay where you are, right? So you have to find a way to push it to the limit. As I said at the end of last week, I think, Joe Rogan asked Elon Musk, he said, well, how do you feel about your rockets blowing up all the time when you test them? He's like, they're supposed to blow up because then we can find out how far the actual one can grow. I don't want to just get to Venus. I want to get to Mars, right? So this one should blow up at 100 miles out. This one should blow up at 200 miles out. If the goal is to get to 1,000 miles out, you're probably going to have to blow up 999 times before you get there. So if you're not failing, you're not learning because you're not pushing your circuitry to the max. All right, so let's review and then humanize it. So every thought, feeling, and action in your life is some combination of neural patterns connecting to one another. Your brain can be renovated and it can happen at any time. All you have to do is make the decision. When you learn a new skill, you change your brain by making new neural connections. When you learn to play an instrument, speak a language, juggle a ball, go for a walk, eat any food, and everything else, your brain begins to change. This changing of your brain is neuroplasticity. And just a tangent about that, oftentimes people that have health issues, especially older people with chronic health issues, their memory starts to go, right? And like their GPS starts to fracture. That's literally their connections decaying because they didn't take care of their body, right? Or their stress level. Stress starts to decay. It starts to take your roads from Beverly Hill roads to Philly roads. Right? And if you ever drove in Philly, your vehicle, you need an ATV. You might not make it. So I hope you got that wheel insurance as well. All right. So novelty and curiosity, number 1. Pleasure and pain, 2. Purpose, 3, which means you must graduate from survival. Focus, exercise, and discomfort. So that's the scientific review, right? And even for if you like super religious, I would believe that there's a science that God made it. So it's still our responsibility to know what's going on. All right, so now humanize it. All right, I know all this that's going on in my brain. What do I do? What's the solution? The solution is commit to your mission. Commit to your mission, right? Novelty, right? Like our mission is to serve schools, families, people, different states, different countries, different mediums, virtually, whatever, right? That's the novelty, all different experiences. We got programs for all gambits of life, financial, physical, mental, business, photography, music, whatever else. Curiosity. Clearly, we're curious. Curiosity is the biggest sign of intelligence. Whatever your business is, you have to learn. You have to learn. You have to learn. You have to learn. Pleasure. It's great to learn, right? And there's also a seeking of the pleasure that's at the end of this road and the beginning of the next, right? There's no such thing as a finish line, but you can graduate from state champ to regional champ to national champ to Olympic champ to all-time fastest or whatever the case may be. Pain, right? It's going to be painful. I don't know if Kels is watching, but I saw your text this morning. Gotta stick it out, bro. Gotta stick it out. That means you're growing. There's something that happened to you or has continued to happen to you that's hitting your brain, right? And you're going to be focused there. And now your focus is generating a new connection because the previous path of connections wasn't working. As for me, which is why I was so excited when I called Just, something clicked for me. Purpose, survival, weak. Status, weak. Freedom, cool, but unfulfilling. Purpose is the goal. Focus, right? Find a target, stick to it. Exercise. We talk about that all the time. You already know. And discomfort, right? So all of this here is essentially a cognitive reconstruction. The medicine don't do nothing for you. Scientifically proven, right? If you got stress and bad thoughts on 100, the music level is on 100. The medicine just brings it down to 50. It's still playing. It's manageable, right? That's coping. You use the medicine to cope, or you drink to cope. You do drugs to cope. But when you handle the process, the first thing that must go is the way that you think, and it must be replaced with a new way that you think. That is called a cognitive reconstruction. Stop taking the old routes, take the detour, and the old route hasn't been used in so long that the weeds covered it, you can't even see it anymore, right? Cognitive reconstruction only happens through commitment, all right? So that's real sciencey, but it gives you a background of what goes on in your brain after you truly make a commitment and after you truly learn something, all right? So any general thoughts, Just? I saw you taking notes. What you think?
Yeah. I'll start us off, and I said this a couple weeks back, I believe. The human mind is a beautiful thing, right? Which is why it's always so much research. People donate their brains after they pass away, just for studies for people that follow them, right? And the biggest thing that I really took from this was the difference between animals and humans, right? Animals, they can't rewire themselves, right? They definitely can't rewire themselves. If you see a cat only has one brain wave of knowing how to be a cat, right? Pounce, do everything a cat does, right? But as the beauty of a human, right? You have the ability to reconstruct your mind in a way that you want to be, right? You can have a mind of a child, right? You can have a mind, and it doesn't matter how old you are, right? But once you commit and focus and move intentionally, you have the ability to change the way your brain actually works. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people don't know that because they're just okay with it, right? So for me, it really just shows the beauty of what humans are really capable of, because someone that you know that you knew for X amount of years, if you haven't seen them in 5 years, they can be a completely different person than when you've seen them before, simply because they were intentional about how they wanted to rewire and fire those connections in their brain. And it's just a beautiful thing to see. And especially when you know that someone's been putting in work to do that, right? And I just think this lesson is so powerful and so key, especially now because we're in this space where our options of doing a lot of things are limited, right? We have to do and move differently because it's required to, because obviously for pandemic reasons. So why not dive deep into who you are, into how your brain is, especially now, because people definitely, in the pandemic, we've seen stress levels raise, we've seen anxiety raise, and that's because people are forced to listen to their thoughts for the first time in a while, right? They have to sit still, and this is a perfect opportunity to figure out all these things that we're talking to. But it definitely takes the work, doing the work to really master what you want and who you want to be.
Yeah, those are all great points, KG. Definitely, I agree, and I guess the first thing that I thought of when you were speaking were, unfortunately, we get a chance to see in our communities how different people are when they've had a pre-jail or prison experience versus who they are when they come home, and hopefully they are a completely different individual. All right. Now, obviously, everybody can, either say that they've had that connection personally or not, but we see it with celebrities all the time. At least in our community, we see a 360 reversal for somebody like Gucci Mane, all the way to the fact that, all of the trolls and things believe that he is a completely different person that's cloned. Same thing with Kodak Black. But I will highlight the fact that people just do not understand the reality of what trauma can do to a person in an environment that forces them to change. Okay. So their environments, as Malcolm talks about, which one was the environment? Herb's Rule? Heb's Rule? Mal, can you confirm?
Yes.
Yep. So, Heb's Rule, if that's the environment for our brain, I mean, the environment when somebody steps into an environment like prison or in jail, I mean, for a lack of a better word, that's an environment that you must make decisions. You must in order to survive. However, that is not the reality when you are out here operating in the free world, which is why so many people find themselves in this continuous cycle of immobility. There's no movement happening, right? Because you're not forced to make a decision. Now, I don't want to stay on that topic, but I just do want to show that people do have the opportunity to completely become a different person just from the work they're doing. Now, the fact that Malk even, brought up this topic just confirmed to me a video that I was watching and talking about with my lady yesterday. It was a short clip between Grant Cardone and the gentleman from Sleep is for Suckers, I think it is. I think that's how that was the gentleman. And essentially, the gentleman from Sleep for Suckers was saying how after a conversation with Grant, he was kind of disappointed in himself because the way that Grant approaches life is like 1,000 miles an hour, and he's always moving. And the gentleman was saying how disappointed he is of himself because of how lazy he's been. And Grant corrected him. He said, "Man, I don't think that you're lazy. I think what happens with people that can't find mobility or start on a track of movement is because they have too many data points, right? Too many different perspectives, too many different lifestyle influencers, right? That are coming to them all at once that say a completely different message. Everybody's speaking with complete confidence, and you're not sure who you are or which one you follow." And the great part about it is that actually represents most people's environments, okay? Most people grow up in an environment, children especially, okay? Number one, most children are not growing up in a house where there is one unified voice, okay? If you want to take a step back and look at the way that homes are constructed now, dad feels one way about a topic, mom feels another way about a topic, and the child is caught in the middle and can sometimes and many times manipulate both sides so that the child can win, because that's the role of a child. Okay. However, what the reality of that is that it creates is you have a young person now from the beginning stages of their life. There is a norm of instability. There's a norm of an unclear direction to travel to. Okay. And then you create immobility, or you create these other personality characteristics like finesse, like the ability to massage situations so that they can get their whatever outcome that they want. And that's not really the individual you're trying to build. However, if that's the environment that I'm in order for me to make a complete turnaround, I have to see it modeled somewhere, quite honestly, right? Because as a child, all I know is what is in front of me. This is normal to me. Mom doesn't agree with dad. Dad doesn't agree with mom. Mom works out. Dad doesn't. Dad intoxicates himself. Mom doesn't. You know, one person's eating healthy. The other person's not. The other one person's going to work, really trying to, you know, beat the pavement every single day. The other person's kind of lax. And then you have to sometimes, as a young person, break away from that, right? I'm so thankful for all of our either high school or college experiences. Of course, even if your parent was blessed enough to go to college, when you went through college, you came back a completely different person than they were. Completely different from how you were raised. Your thought process, your norms, what you wanted to achieve in life were completely different. And the reason is because in your environment change, based on Hebb's rule, now you see a way to build up myelin differently. I can build a better road, a better system for myself on what I've identified is my goal, my purpose. I can build that differently, or I see it to be differently because my environment has changed. Now, we became different because our environment changed. Now, our environment didn't change because it was happenstance. We put the work in for it, right? We found a way to be successful academically. We found a way to build study skills. We found a way to develop a daily routine of some sort. Me, KG, Malcolm all went to boarding schools for high school. Now, I've never been to KG school, but I'm willing to bet a year salary that they had a study hall hour or 2 hours 5 or 6 times a week, because there's a model that all of these boarding schools follow, because it's proven to give success to young people. Okay. Now, that is a schedule. That is a way to structure your day that I have never let go of. That has, I really believe, is a integral part of me being able to grow, not just intellectually or academically, but just as a person. Because whenever I decide to focus on something related to my purpose, I have a system that I can put in place and say, hey, from the hours of 8 to 10, phone is on silent. Everybody in the house needs y'all to be quiet. I'm going into that mode, just no different than when I was hungry as a 14-year-old kid trying to change my reality from what I saw at home or in my environment. And I was given a tool set. Now, the great part about listening to podcasts like this is that maybe you didn't have to go through that, or you weren't given an opportunity to go through an experience like we did, or your parents didn't have to pay X amount of thousands of dollars, or the child wasn't put with a burden, responsibility, or like Malcolm, opportunity to earn a scholarship worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? But you still can get the same lesson by listening. So just the same way we listen to motivational speakers, and everybody has their own angle. They have their own approach to life that they are trying to get you to subscribe to. It's important for you to make a decision on one, okay? It doesn't have to be the right one, but you have to make a decision on one. Because even if your decision to subscribe to one person's approach to life is not the best suited for you, you will only know that after committing to it fully and seeing the results that you get out of it. Okay. I can't remember the reality. I can't remember the examples that Grant gave, but I remember these two stuck out to me. Dave Ramsey was telling people to save their money, and Gary Vee was saying money doesn't even matter. Like, just do your purpose, find fulfillment, right? So like now people are at an impasse. I don't know whether I should go get the bag and save it, or should I just not worry about it at all? And I don't really have anybody in my environment that is flushing these ideas out or helping me to process them. So now I'm just immobile, right? Very similar to driving. And you have two, as we all know, we've been in a car with backseat drivers before, okay? And what they do is they completely disrupt the normal decision-making of the driver, okay? They create an environment where one person's saying turn right, the other person saying turn left, and the driver is like, hey, I'm sitting still so we don't get in an accident. What's the real deal, right? And there are so many people that are sitting in that driver's seat. Yes, it is your vehicle to move. It is your life to move throughout life. But because there are so many different people giving us different pieces of advice, we're immobile. And my advice is very similar to what I heard, which is make a decision. If you decide that you're going to go on the path like somebody like Gary Vee is offering to you, where money doesn't matter, understand that, hey, look, I'm going to commit to this, but I may have money problems in the process. That's just the reality of deciding, and it's okay. You will continue to live. There are people who have lived 70, 80, 90 years with money problems. I mean, most people in the world, not just America, are dealing with money problems right now during the coronavirus. But we no longer have the time and space, because life is short, as we see, to just be immobile. That's my compassionate message for today. All right. If you want to feel anything, just make a decision on just some angle of movement you're gonna make. But like sitting still is not only harming you, but it's also creating a norm for the people that watch you, that being immobile and being what can be viewed as lazy is okay. And to be honest with you, it's not okay. This is the last thing I'm gonna say, because I know I've been talking. Another amazing example that was given was that lazy is a learned behavior. Lazy is a learned behavior. How do you know that? When you have a baby, or you're babysitting an infant or a child, that baby is either sleeping, eating, or it is all over the place. It is in curiosity and discover mode. Their motor never stops. That's why the most common word that a baby hears is no. Okay. Now, the only way to change that about the human psyche and behavior is by dampering it, saying, no, don't be as curious. Don't be as mobile. Don't be as ready and fire, have such a fire towards your approach. So then, what happens? You put the baby down for a nap. You teach them to relax. Oh, in these environments, when we go in here, you can't talk loud, and you can't, ask those curious questions. I know that it's okay to, ask those questions at home, but it's not okay to be curious in this environment, right? And you begin to slowly damper that fire until it is a norm for the person to kind of just be even keel. And even in our society, we praise people like that. Oh, it doesn't matter how much things are going on around you. You always stay so even. That can definitely be beneficial, and it definitely can save your life in many situations. But being lazy and not having a fire approach to life is not what you were brought into this world with. So if that is being cultivated, if that is being encouraged in your environment, I just offer you to make a genuine and serious decision to either remove yourself or put blinders on in that environment, blinders and headphones. Okay. Because what you see and what you hear does impact your subconscious, which impacts your decision-making and what you do consciously.
So, I mean, I'll follow up real quick. One thing that I heard Just say that kind of touched and hit a strong point with me was the fact of just making a decision, right? I think a good example of to bring everything in is like college, right? And I know some of the listeners may have gone to college, you guys may have not. So I apologize to those who didn't go to college. But if you think about it, in school you had to make a decision, right? You're gonna stay on the yard, you're gonna party. It's Friday afternoon, or you're gonna go to class and actually do what you got to do. And based on your decision, ended in a result. You're gonna either fail the class or you're gonna make it and you're gonna do good, which then creates pain and pleasure, which then changes the way you think and then changes the whole process of what you actually do. So I think that's when I was thinking about it and everybody was talking, I'm like, yo, college is just like that. You decide if you want to go to school, you don't want to go to class that day, you good. You know what I mean? You fail the test, you fail the class, then you feel terrible about it. Then you make some of the worst decisions or you end up dropping out of school because it becomes like a snowball effect. Or you actually do good, you feel good about yourself, you're moving around every day, you're exercising your brain, and then you notice the progress and how much you're doing better and how much you're progressing compared to most. And I think a great comparison of that is when you go home. Like a lot of times you go home for Christmas break after your first year or your first semester, or you go home the first summer and everybody's looking at you like, yo, you changed. Yeah, because I've been exercising my brain every single day. I've been getting up and walking to class every single day. I've been making decisions that impact my future every single day. So I think it's college is a great example to show that, hey, you got to stay consistent, you got to make a decision, and you got to stay active in order to actually progress.
It's amazing. Sorry to cut you off, Mark. I know you came off mute, but what is amazing about the point that you made, KP, is that the young person that didn't make those decisions in high school, maybe they did just enough to get accepted and have their financial aid package worked out, whatever their situation is. But now you get into a situation where the norm is decision making. And that is not the reality for high school or in most people's homes when they're being raised by today's parents or I'm gonna say our generation's parents, but the young people that are going on, right? And decision making is really only cultivated in a young person or in a person when it is forced. Our culture does not culture, but our society in America does not force decision making. In fact, it actually more so supports. Help me out, Malcolm.
The gray area.
Staying on the fence.
Yeah.
Indecision. Mm-hmm. Right? Or there is convenience brought to that individual who does not make decisions, which only further weakens the individual or makes them less of a competitor in our community, in our society.
Keeps them away from purpose.
Bingo. So, I mean, I just already get so excited, but I'm really excited at the fact that college did that for you, KP, and you could see how that affected your future. And obviously, like, us being the age that we have, hopefully God will give us a full life and we still have another 50, 60 years to utilize the experience that he's given us. Like, that's the reason why it's okay to make a decision to go in a direction that even may not work out for you, right? You're playing the long game. It's not like if I don't make the decision to go to class, I fail this test, I'm done for a 4-year career in college. It's like, no, I might need to regroup, right? So if I pick the wrong the wrong influencer to follow, it's okay. Like, I have ability to rebound because of where I am in life. But I echo your experience when you return back home. In fact, I've learned to use it as a gauge for confirmation for me that I have utilized my time away from family in the right way, because I am able to measure growth and distance from those experiences.
Absolutely. And no offense to the homies back at home, but you know what I mean? It's just, it's a difference. It's a difference.
Amen.
Aim is the key word. Aim.
If they offended, then they should be,
Right.
Yeah, they can hit you up and talk about it. What do you mean? But I wanted to get back to this comment And I think in my personal life, I can speak on it. And also, Miss Iman, I understand you're an educator too. Two-parent household is overrated. Here's why. Right? Two parents is great. Two parents is dope. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's much more about the actual people than the fact that there's two people. Right? In a strong relationship, there's an exchange of power. So whoever is better at area A, they make the decisions, they make the plans in the discussion. Who's ever better at area B, they make the decisions, they make the plan. If there's an even level of knowledge or experience or whatever at area C, y'all 50-50, 80-20, whatever, y'all make the dual decision. But so many times, especially in relationships that break up, oftentimes there's one parent that outran the other. Right? There's one parent that outran the other for whatever the reason may be. Right? So all it takes is one. It's much more about resources, networks, and how you utilize those resources and networks than the fact that there's two parents. Right? Now, two parents with their stuff together, educated, plan, yes, that's the ideal. But it only takes one. It only takes one. And then going back to the environment thing, in our community, there's way too many women raising boys. It's possible, right? It's not. KG's on the call. You feel me? Like it's not impossible, right? But just like we men, we've never been women. Like we can teach them things and be principled and more, but we wasn't women. And oftentimes, those women came from failed relationships, either their fault, his fault, both of their fault, life's fault, whatever the case may be. And then there's a lack of those relationship skills being handed down. It's like men collectively have forgot that our ability to lead and be the manly role, that has to be earned. It's not just provided because of your biological makeup, right? It has to be earned. Then also on the other side, especially in our community, the women must learn to follow a man, a qualified man, a qualified man. If you ain't qualified, don't do that. You feel me? And once again, we have to earn it. I'm not saying just men do this, just women do that. No, but to answer that question, single parent, two parents, don't matter. It's all about what kind of person they are, their resources, and their actual parenting skills. I think it was Just was saying he had a professional experience. Like I didn't have a baby to be a teacher, to be a caregiver. Like like you are everything. You know, like there's a thing that school is supposed to do, the parenting job, and like we kind of do. Like I kind of feel like a bounty hunter sometimes more than I do a teacher. Like if they ain't come to school, they ain't come to school. They get an F. They bring in their excuse note. They get a makeup job. They done. If not, they ain't do it. But what I wanted to do, I wanted to provide a image to something powerful that Just said. You hit it right on the money, and it also goes into what KP said. I just text y'all like last week. I said I hate when I go home too, and like when I talk to my friends, they be like, "Malcolm, you always saying smart stuff." They don't say stuff. You always saying smart stuff. I'm like, is you dumb? Like, what should I say? You know, like, but I could tell it was different circuits firing. Like, yeah, I've been saying smart stuff like since 12, but like I'm no smarter than the average man or whatever. I just been in a different environment, fired some different circuits, been exposed to different things, and I found a purpose, right? And finding that purpose is very, very important.
And at this point, it's been compounded over a series of years because you've kept that approach.
Yes.
Right. So now there is distance that have been created between you and those people. And at this point, because you've been at it since 12, it is visual.
Yeah, 100%.
And significant.
100%. And then a single parent feedback. That is why I put my sons in sports. I knew they needed a male influence, right? So you can find it, you know, and the better person, man or woman that you are, you can find other men, women, or whoever. Or just imagine, like, I'm making this up off the whim. Like you had a mom and a dad. Dad was no good. Mom was great, but she didn't have really good relationship skills. She figured out midway through the relationship that it wasn't a good match, but she had a good job of business. She had a life together. She was mentally and physically fit. Then she ran into another man. A man with a network, a man with resources, maybe got his own kids or maybe don't. And now you got a father figure. right? So you went from 2 parents to 1 parent to 2 parents, and then maybe that doesn't work, whatever the case may be. But it's much more about resources and network. But back to the image, because what Just said was pretty powerful to me. So, and it also goes into what KP said. So how did this happen? How did this happen? Like I too, for even a couple of minutes, I was like, yo, this is fake. Like this was Gucci Mane going in. This him today. When he came out that prison, everybody was like, yo, who is this? And I hope it wasn't because of that, because of his wife or fiance, whatever the relation. I hope it was because of him. Because if they don't work, then he'll probably lose it. All right. I think things need to come from intrinsic reasons. Now, your woman and your man should make you better, but this got to come from inside because you won't maintain it. But he definitely, first thing he changed was his thinking. Clearly, he's not putting the same things into his body. Clearly, he had a purpose. Clearly, he was exercising. But also, some people go in prisons and they come out worse, right? So it's not necessarily the environment that you're placed in, it's what you do in the environment that you're placed in. Because just like Just said, him, KG, and I, we all went to these nice schools with all of these great people. I know some people in some horrible situations now that was in the same classes as us. And some of them had even more opportunities to be great in different areas than we did. Like much, much, much sweeter opportunities. And this is also going to be something that happens after the Rona. Like when you get back to the office or the school, some people that used to look like this, gonna look like this. Guaranteed. But a fewer amount that used to look like this are going to look like that. Right? So that neuroplasticity from the brain leads to a change like this. Like if you've been lacking your whole life and you get it together, you find out who you really are, you're going to shock people. You're going to shock people.
You almost look reborn.
Yeah.
Like
literally.
Another great person, and I'm not sure where her story is outside of a decision that she made, is Jennifer Hudson. Okay. Now, when Jennifer Hudson came on the scene, I mean, you know, everybody's aware of what her body image looked like, but she clearly did some mental work as well, because she speaks differently. Her perspective on life is different. I got a chance to see that she also, you know, made a personal relationship with the family of Dr. Sebi, right? So not only do I want to get in good shape, not only do I just want to be a consumer, I want to develop a relationship with the people that I'm taking their products so that I can understand their mentality, right? That is a completely different approach to wanting to be healthy and to be happy. Getting to the root cause of why the people are able to serve me so well. Okay. And I think that speaks a huge amount of, that speaks volumes about her character and that much about her growth, because anybody knows when you are trying to change your body from looking like Gucci Mane on the left to the right, you have to be committed to delayed gratification, because there is the amount of pain that your body goes through when you're trying to change, the amount of conflicting ideas that you have, the amount of discouragement that enters your brain or your environment gives you. I mean, you have to bypass a lot of things in order to have this product on the right-hand side. Now, the beautiful thing about it is if you are able to achieve this massive transformation, oh man, there are a number of people who will no longer like to be around you because you don't have anything in common any longer. Yeah. You're nowhere near the person. I don't care if you spent 20 out of 25 years with that person. You no longer have anything in common, because now that is a person who has made a decision on the right-hand side. Okay. The physical is just representative of the decision. Go ahead, KG.
Dope. And one of the reasons that some of the people don't want to be around you anymore, right? It is envy, because you were able to make that decision and stick with it, right? that ability to commit and follow through with what you said you were going to do, just like we talk about with Game 7, commitment is doing what you said you were going to do long after that emotional feeling of your what you said, whatever you said you were going to do fades away. For example, you say you want to commit to losing weight, right? And you start a new diet, you start a new way that you eat, you just start a new way that you operate. 3 weeks in, you know, your boss is nagging you, whatever, you're feeling low. And all of a sudden, that emotional high isn't there anymore. What you going to do? Do you still have the ability to do what you said you were going to do? And when you do, people often envy you, right? When you see people make these big transformations, their environment also changes too. The people they have around them has to change, right? Because if you want to change as an individual, right, you can't be surrounded by the people that allowed you to make those same decisions in the first place, right? So if you're surrounded by people who don't eat like you, who don't want to be motivated in exercise, who don't want to exercise their mind, that is going to highly put your wants and your needs at a lower level, because you can't connect with them. They don't know what you're going through, right? And then they're often going to do like, yo, you doing too much, yo, like, dang. And then they're going to try to guilt trip you because they don't have the ability themselves to dig deep. So then they're going to try to make it like you're the weird person and isolate you for wanting to be better than you were the day before, right? And as we see on the screen, what is a hater? Someone who wishes they did what you were willing to do, right? And that's all it is. We live in a society, especially like on the gram, you look at somebody doing something spectacular on a gram, and you look at the comments, but XYZ, this and that. I'm like, yo, like, you are that hurt in your life that you just can't say good job to somebody, right? And it is sickening, because it's like, yo, like, you can make that same decision. You just do not have the belief in yourself, right? You don't think you're worth it. You don't believe that you can get through it, simply because you've never committed yourself to doing anything hard. And that comes from discomfort, right? We talked about that earlier, right? Having the ability to be uncomfortable, having the ability to do something and commit to something that you've never done before, right? And a lot of the time, people hover in this position of being comfortable because of the fear of the unknown, right? The fear of the unknown. They don't know what's on the other side, so I'll just coast here and play it safe. And that all they do is hope and wish something can change, right? But that other person, they diving in. They just, there's a pool right there. Oh, how many feet is it? 10? Oh, I can swim good enough. Shoot, I can doggy paddle. And they dive in while you over there looking like you playing double dutch, waiting to jump in. You got all these people next to you diving in, turning into Michael Phelps, while you the double dutch legend, trying to get your timing right. It don't work like that, y'all. And you criticizing everyone who has the courage to just dive in, right? And every time somebody dives in, well, that person don't look right. Oh, why her body look like that? She get up out that pool, her body gonna look different about when she gets out the pool, and you gonna still look the same way. So understand, y'all, like, if you want to change, everyone has the ability, right? It's not gonna be this easy path at all, right? We know that, but when you're willing to put in the time and put in the work, your results will happen. And it may not happen instantly, right? I say this analogy all the time. Sometimes I say it to my students too. Like, I'd rather be the person who has 500 followers, and then in 4 years, then I'll have 500,000 versus someone who goes viral overnight, right? Because when you go viral overnight, now you're forced to act like a fool or do crazy things just to stay on, because what? You didn't have a plan to go viral. No one has really a plan to go viral. It sometimes it just happens. Like, you be like, oh, let's do this video. This should be funny, or this would be cool. And then it goes viral, right? And then you see a lot of those people that go virals or the internet sensations for a couple of months, then they just fade away, right? And then you start seeing like, yo, this person is tripping. The next time, like Lil Terrio, like, you know what I mean? Like, people like that, the ooh, kill him. Like, that went viral. He didn't know it was gonna go viral, right? I haven't seen his page. I'm sure he still has a lot of followers, right? But I haven't seen his page because I don't know. Like, but that's what we just have to understand as a people. Like, you're not just gonna get what you want because you simply want it. It comes with time, a planning ahead, and just putting your head down and allowing yourself grace and delayed gratification, as just said earlier, or I think that was just who said it. And once you commit and understand that, put your foot on the gas and allow grace and forgiveness on the way with yourself. No one's perfect.
So it's kind of crazy. I guess I've been a student for so long that even when I experience entertainment, it's still like a learning opportunity for me. I look to pull things from everything that I see or experience. So I mean, obviously I was supposed to watch it. It's nothing that I would usually watch, but it came up yesterday. I was trying to have some downtime, but I wound up spending maybe like 3-4 hours pausing back and forth this documentary that came up about Whitney Houston on Amazon Prime. And the title of it was, "It Can I Just Be Me?" or "Can I Be Me?" Now, I guess I started watching it just for entertainment. I planned on just putting something on so I could take a nap. And then it captured my attention. There's a couple parallels. Me and her are both from the same city in Newark, New Jersey. She then moved and grew up a part of her life in the same city that my dad grew up in. So there goes another connection. And I mean, she's right in my dad and my parents' age group. And there's a lot of connections of people that we know because our area is small, just like every other city. So getting a chance to see her life kind of play out the way that it did, and they exposed some different struggles that she had, which gave a lot more understanding and meaning to why she struggled with her addiction so much. Okay. That was clearly her drug addiction was clearly an attempt to self-medicate. All right. And for me, one thing that I learned from this documentary, which I want to share, is that when people are in a place that they are not satisfied, it is important that they are able to identify that the people around them in their environment are responsible. Okay. Whoever you spend time with, whoever you are associated with, without knowing it, you sign up to have a responsibility for the well-being or lack of well-being of the people that you are around. Okay. That's why parents always tell kids, careful who you hang around, be careful what company you keep, right? Because what they are saying without saying is that everybody is responsible for each other and everybody can influence everybody else. Okay. Now, in Whitney's situation, clearly, a once in a lifetime talent, clearly the breadwinner, everybody's eating off of her payroll, or she's just kind of, paying for them to survive. But no one is pulling her coattail on what was once a social drug use. Okay. And then as the time goes on, we begin to see people being accessories essentially to her downfall. Okay. And unfortunately, it's important to be able to see your environment and the people through a sense of responsibility, because once you see that and you accept that, it is no longer hard to leave that environment, because you understand that the people that are here with me are not helping me to get to a better place, regardless of the title that they have in your life, including family, including best friends, including coworkers, or whatever it is, the people that are very, very close to you. They are partially responsible for a demise that you are experiencing, because they know you at a different level, and they do have close enough relationship with you to help steer you in a different direction, but they're not doing it. Okay. So, but once she found her focus in about 2007, she got divorced from Bobby Brown. We all knew what was going on with his career. Not to talk bad about the brother or not, but he hadn't found success in a career to be a stable individual. And of course, I'm sure that the love definitely was important in their relationship, but never, I'm very, very supportive of the fact of two individuals being stable individually so that the relationship can be stable. Because when there is a seesaw effect, oh boy, you talk about tension, you talk about a lot of different issues that can arise. So she found her focus in about 2007. She got divorced. She went to rehab. She moved to Atlanta, which at that time wasn't a major celebrity base, because she wanted to find her grounding again, recommit herself to God. But like Janae Aiko said, she found her focus, and then the beast awoken. Okay. She started cutting people off. All the people that were around her that were not responsible, but an accessory to her downfall. Family, cousins, close friends from the neighborhood she kept around this whole time. And now it's like, whoa, what's wrong? Now she's really gone crazy. Now you see these other tabloids coming on. Oh, she's not right. We like the decision she made when she was doing drugs. And you're like, when you hear people say things like that about you and they're supposed to love you, whoa, you can begin to question, right? Because you're very lackluster when you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, right? You don't see where your money's going. You don't see where your time and effort is going. And when that beast awoken, her circle got smaller, but she never actually dealt with the root cause of what was causing her issues, which is why we've seen the relapse and ultimately her demise. Now, I say that I bring all this to the point because when she found her focus, she experienced envy that KG talked about. Okay. When people experience envy towards you, yes, it does highlight something that you're doing that they haven't yet proven to themselves that they can do. But it's also a highlight that they are only committed in the fight if they can get quick results, which is never a part of a sustained change or success in someone's life. Sustained or consistent success or stability comes from delayed gratification. Okay. And for many people that experience envy, it's because they have been coddled. When we talk about convenience, okay. And if you notice, convenience only exists in certain environments, in certain demographic locations. Because I don't see many convenience stores in high income environments, neighborhoods, cities, towns, municipalities. No, it's not. It's not you can just walk out your door and go down to the corner store and grab everything that you basically could out of the supermarket. It's I have to get in my car. I have to drive to the town center or the supermarket center, and I have to be intentional about these things because all of these different needs are in different parts of the area, which takes planning, right? It takes a different type of individual to be able to exist in that environment. Whereas convenience creates the lack of that need, which influences everything that is, which then follows that, the lack of focus. Then we're talking about definitely not exercising, being able to create these different neuroplasticity waves or opportunities in your brain, right? And of course you're experiencing discomfort, right? That's what creates a force of a change for anyone. But I wanted to highlight that because unfortunately, and this is going to rub some people the wrong way, okay? But me, Malcolm, KP, and KG, we work in education. We all know that education is a female-dominated industry, no different than healthcare, okay? And do we have concerns about the young ladies that are being grown, cultivated, and nurtured? Of course we do. But there is a sounding alarm around young men. Sounding, I'm talking about a siren going off. I am fearful. I am so fearful for them. So fearful. Okay. And we're not too much older. But I will say that a large part of the reason is because young men interface with too many women. They interface with women at home. They interface with women at school. They interface with women at the community center, right? So much to the fact that when they get an opportunity to create connections, or a male attempts to create a relationship with that young person, and if they are a man's man, it's too harsh for the young man. It's too harsh for that even high school male, right? Because they have been cultivated in an environment that is coddling, that brings comfort. That is the role of a woman, to bring comfort. Huh?
1 minute.
Sorry, yep. To bring comfort. And there is no growth that comes from comfort. There's not one kind of growth that comes from comfort. So without knowing it, you are weakening the individual that is supposed to take the leadership role in your family, or his own family that he creates, or at least his society and his environment. Hence the reason why most men don't actually become men that you know until they are faced with such tough experiences, like either a life or death situation, or you go to jail. And as we know from Benny the Butcher, jail cells is where I learned decision making, right? Because you're in an environment with other men, right? When you are in an environment with men, there is no place to run and hide or find comfort. There is an exposure of who you are currently, and you need to immediately make a decision on who you will be, because if not, you will be a victim. Unfortunately, that reality does exist out here in the free world. It's just overcasted by a number of other things, right? Like public assistance, like a number of other things that I wish not to share right now. But that's my 2 cents. I appreciate you guys listening.
All right, so to close out, one important thing to note is that for this to work, you gotta do all of it. Like, you can't just choose variety, pleasure, and comfort, right? You can't do that. It's got to be a process. And so start off with the things you can control. Number one is exercise. And what I'm gonna tell you, that's the first thing I look at people, because you are a reflection of your standards. You're a reflection of your standards. Now, if you got some disability, something, all right, that's usually not the case, right? But I could tell you don't prioritize your life overall. And what I know from a lot of people who I work with who try to come around and switch their life around, they do all the other stuff first. They usually leave the exercise out. And for people that we highlighted that truly do change, the first thing that changes is their body, which means that they made a decision, something changed in their mind first. All right, so please like, comment, share. We appreciate you, and we will see you next week. Peace out.